15 minutes of daily inspiration. You are on the New Birth platform. I'm your pastor of Internet and Innovation, Kervance Ross, and our senior pastor, Dr. Jamal-Harrison Bryant, is all about empowerment. And you know, we do more than just church. We make sure that we are changing a community through service. And these moments are normal inspiration with our pastors. But because of everything that's going on in our world, everything that's going on in our nation, and everything that's going on in our community, right in front of the National Black History Museum, we've taken it back a few years to make sure that you're empowered like none other. And we couldn't do it without bringing a woman in. You know, if you want to get it done right, you need a woman. And today, you're going to be inspired and empowered by the one and only Angela Davis. Get your kids, share, tag, and get your family. You're getting ready to be inspired and empowered. Welcome, Angela Davis.
We can be ripped off on any kind of a charge. I want to get on to the business that we came here to do today. Jane Fonda ran down the fact that we really, really need money. And I really hope that you will give everything you can, keeping in mind that you are defending yourselves. You're defending yourselves, you're defending the struggle, you're defending the cause of liberation. So while the brothers and sisters are circulating in the crowd, I'd like to run down the demands that we, the Soledad Brothers Defense Committee, have formulated, which we think will be able to begin to deal effectively with what's happening in the prison. And we want to go over and let the Adult Authority and the Department of Corrections know that we are moving on this, that we will not stop until there are no more prisons except for those people that I was talking about before, except for the real criminals. So we will not stop until all political prisoners are free. Now what we want to do at this point is go over to the third floor and that building which is cat-a-corner to this building. So we want to go in two lines, go up to the third floor where the Adult Authority is and make it known that we are initiating this movement now to eradicate those oppressive conditions in the prison and that we will not stop until we have won. Okay, some of you that don't have signs, there's about 5 or 6 signs right here to your right. As you pass by, you can pick one up. Can you dig it? My brother, free my sister, free my people. Oh, I'm free now.
On the 7th day of August of the year 1970, a 17-year-old man-child walked into the silent courtroom of Marin County. Tall, evil, graceful, bright-eyed, black man-child. Courage in one hand, assault rifle in the other. He died on the trigger, scourge of the unrighteous. Soldier of the people. Terrible man-child.
This is the first national television interview for Angela Davis since she was acquitted of kidnapping, murder, and conspiracy in connection with the Marin County Courthouse shootout that took place 2 years ago. Angela, how do you feel inside now? I mean, about being free. Do you have a mixed feeling about being a little bitter and a little sweet? Are you most sweet? I mean, how are you accepting this? One, this ordeal that you've been put through, and secondly, now your new freedom.
Well, certainly, the months I spent in jail, the majority of which was spent in solitary confinement, weren't a very happy experience at all. But I wouldn't really say that I feel bitter about my own personal ordeal, because I know that so many of my sisters and brothers are right now suffering under conditions that are far worse than those that I had to put up while I was in prison. My overall feeling about the acquittal is that the victory around my case means that there can be more victories. And all of the people, all of the sisters and brothers who came together in an organized fashion in order to demand my freedom can see now that it's possible to free more political prisoners and to do something about the oppression which has enslaved black people in this country for so long.
Well, Angela, when you say political prisoner, what do you mean?
Well, there are a number of ways in which I would describe what a political prisoner is. Of course, we all recognize that the United States does not recognize the existence of political prisoners. And in fact, in general, when you talk about a person who is arrested for political reasons, you're talking about the use of criminal charges in order to stifle leadership, in order to isolate leaders and activists from the community. There is that kind of political prisoner. We know about Bobby Seale and Erica Huggins and Huey Newton and Leotis Johnson, and I could go on and on and on. The list is endless. The Soledad brothers. We know that they were arrested on criminal charges as an excuse for removing them from the community, removing them from their revolutionary work and activity among the people. But over the last few years, there has come into being another kind of political prisoner. And I'm talking about all of the sisters and brothers who are victims of the system, who are easy targets of the police, who get railroaded through the courts into prison, often for no reason at all, who are there only because they're black. And I think a brother during the Attica Rebellion sort of expressed this whole thing when he was asked by a reporter what he was charged with. And he said he was charged with being black. That's why he was there. And coupled with the oppression that leads black people and brown people, people of color, into the jails and prisons of this country, has been a new kind of political awareness that has spread all over the jails and prisons throughout the country. George Jackson, and Fleeta Drumgo, and John Cluchet, and Rochelle McGee. I could go on and on and on to name the sisters and brothers who have achieved a political awareness and a political commitment behind the walls. But you see, once they do this, then they are subjected to all of the terror that the prison system has to offer. Mm-hmm. And so they end up spending years and years and years in prison under the worst of circumstances.
Angela, tell me how, I have been frequently asked this, we've received letters, fans of Angela Davis, and some brothers and sisters don't understand your concept of communism. They don't understand, they cannot, let's say, reconcile blackness and communism. What is your philosophy in that respect?
Well, first of all, I think that black people, particularly black youth and brown youth, are beginning to see through the lies and distortions of the government and are beginning to see that much of what has been said about communism in this country is simply not true. The reason I am a communist is because I feel that only through a total revolution, which is going to overthrow the capitalist control of the economy, which will seize the wealth from all of the giant corporations that exploit and control the lives of all working people, but particularly black people. And see, I feel that the reason why racism is so blatant and has been a part of the history of black people from the time we were first kidnapped from the shores of Africa is because it has helped those capitalists gain more and more profit. And if you look at any factory, any plant, who does the worst jobs? Who gets paid the smallest salaries? It's black people. So racism serves as a buttress, as a justification for super exploitation. And I feel that if we're going to talk about the total liberation of black people, we first have to liberate ourselves from the material conditions of our oppression. And the material conditions of our oppression are no jobs, or bad jobs, unemployment, bad housing, bad medical care, and all of the kinds of things that will be eradicated under socialism. I think, however, that there's been a lot of confusion, even in the movement, even among sisters and brothers who are fighting for liberation, about what communism is all about. People have talked about black people being used by communists. And I think that really underestimates our ability as black people to be leaders. And not only to lead ourselves, but to lead white people also. And as a communist in this country, I see that the greatest revolutionary potential exists among black and brown people.
Angela, let me ask the classic question.
And so just one more thing, and I'd like to make the point that when I talk about a communist revolution, I'm talking about a revolution which encompasses the vast majority of people in this country who are working people, but a revolution which is led by people of color, working people of color.
Would you see this as a means of, one, eradicating racism as well as classism?
The two are inextricably combined. As I said before, racism, in terms of its material base, means super exploitation economically. It means that black people get the worst of the entire lot economically. It also means that the capitalist, the boss, is able to divide black workers from white workers. Why? Because he tells the white worker that his problem is not those who control his lives, those who take his labor and turn it into profit for themselves, but his problem is the black man who's trying to get his job. And so racism is operated as a divisive force to prevent the emergence of a real revolution in this country.
Well, the kind of thing that you're trying to do, Angela, do you see that as being in any way in conflict with black nationalism?
Well, it depends on what you mean by black nationalism. Of course, I would never equate the oppression of black people in this country with the exploitation of white people. I think that there is an essential difference, and there is a national aspect of our struggle as black people, and we have to maintain that cohesiveness and that unity among ourselves in order to be effective in a broader revolution. I would say also that for white people, for white workers, the most important thing they have to do now is combat racism, so that racism and the fight against racism becomes the key to a broad revolution embracing all people in this country, all working people.